Welcome, fearfully and wonderfully made humans, to another episode of the Holistic Counselor Podcast. Today's episode is extra special to me because my guest, Dr. David Bernstein, played a pivotal role in my own healing journey, and I'm truly honored to have him here. Let me take you back to my mid-30s. I was struggling with severe anxiety and a strange choking feeling. I went to a doctor, had blood work done, and they said, "It's all in your mind," handing me a prescription for Xanax. I tried it for 2 days and absolutely hated it. I knew deep down something else was wrong, and it was beyond just mental. Finally, after an emergency thyroid scan, they found a goiter growing inward and referred me to an endocrinologist. I was faced with two options: have my thyroid completely removed and be on Synthroid for life, or undergo radioactive iodine treatment. Both choices left me terrified, frustrated, and more anxious than ever. So I asked every Christian I knew to pray for me. In that moment of crying out to God for help, my sister mentioned Dr. David Bernstein. I decided to make an appointment. I'll never forget walking into his office for the first time. His staff were worshiping and praying for their clients, completely unaware that I had arrived. Right then, I knew it was a divine intervention. I'll be honest, it was an unconventional experience. Dr. Bernstein's digital response technique, the supplements, the strict diets, no sugar, no dairy, no gluten. I basically ate ice cubes and and vegetables. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. But honestly, it felt overwhelming at first because it was a shift in mindset. But I was determined to do whatever it took. And within 4 months, my goiter was completely gone. That experience shaped how I practice today in my own mental health practice. I still see Dr. Bernstein from time to time, and he knows if I walk into his office, it means I'm pretty bad. I'm in pretty bad shape. What I admire about him most is his ability to discern whether the root of an issue is spiritual, mental, or physical. In a world bombarded by toxins and stress, maintaining balance is a challenge, but Dr. Bernstein has been a guiding light in my journey. I don't think he fully realizes the impact he's had on my life. Wow. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to this gifted man, who is so much more than a healer. Dr. David Bernstein was born in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and started his academic journey at Farley Dickinson University, earning his bachelor's in biology in 1971. He took an unexpected turn as a rock and roll musician for several years before returning to school, where he earned his Doctor of Chiropractic degree from New York Chiropractic College in 1978. He was also a member of the Phi Chi or Phi Chi, Phi Chi
Okay.
Phi Chi Omega Honor Society for Scholastic Achievement. Dr. Bernstein is founder and director of the Advanced Wellness Center in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He's a certified clinical nutritionist and has completed numerous postgraduate courses in nutrition, spinal manipulation, and bioenergetic medicine. He's best known for inventing the digital response technique, a method that assesses energy flow throughout the body to detect and correct health issues. The uniqueness and accuracy of DRT even earned him a patent from the United States Patent Office. Beyond his professional work, Dr. Bernstein is also the developer of the God Breathing CD, a relaxing therapeutic tool combining Holy Scripture, classical music, and a special breathing technique available in English and Spanish. He's a member of both the International and American Associations of Clinical Nutritionists, the American Chiropractic Association, and the Florida Chiropractic Association. On a personal note, Dr. Bernstein has been married to his wife, Linda, since 1989. He's an accomplished singer, songwriter, and worship leader at Temple Aaron. I want to say this right.
Hakodesh.
HaKodesh, a
Yeah.
messianic synagogue where he's composed over 100 scripture-based songs. His favorite pastime is leading people in praise and worship. Dr. Bernstein often says, the success of our practice is due in part to the fact that my staff and I are sincerely concerned about our clients' well-being. We take the time to listen and address their healthcare needs on, and an individual basis because each client is special. Our unique assessment procedures and treatment protocols help us pinpoint the precise cause of disease and restore normal function to the body. Our objective is to correct the root cause of the condition rather than merely masking the symptoms. And I can personally attest to that. Dr. Bernstein, welcome to the Holistic Counselor Podcast.
Gee, I hope I can measure up to that introduction there.
Oh wow. I was just like when I was putting it together, I'm like 1971. That's when I was born, Dr. Bernstein.
Yes, it's a long time ago, but with aging gets some wisdom though. I've learned a lot since 1971.
I know. I mean, and I've seen like your, I don't want to say practice grow because you started, did I mention when you started the practice Advanced Wellness Center? When did you start?
1978, yeah.
78. Wow. So since 1978, you've been in that Fort Lauderdale office?
Well, I've been in Fort Lauderdale. I changed off sites one time.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's 46 years now I've been doing this.
Oh my goodness. I'm surprised you're not retired yet, but we need you. So don't retire yet.
I'm working on, yeah, I really don't want to just retire. My father, when he retired, he just sat in front of a TV set the rest of his life, said,
Right.
I can't do that. Okay.
Wow.
So my goal is to have other doctors coming in, and that frees me up to do other things. My next agenda is teaching.
I
I want to teach other doctors my technique. And I also
yeah.
want to go in various congregations, churches, temples, whatever, and speak about health. And I think that's sorely lacking what's going on in the body of believers today. I mean,
Yeah.
you go to a potluck dinner at a church, and it's potluck that you come out healthy after you eat it.
Yeah. No,
So
you're so right. That's one thing that we like, in the church, we like to, I hate to say, point out different things, right? But then we don't look at how our body is a temple. So so let's start there because I know, I mean, I wanted to ask about your diverse background and how it influenced your approach to health and wellness and how you became a musician to a holistic practitioner and stuff like that. But I know also like I'm excited to talk about Genesis 1 with you. So
mhm.
wherever you want to start, like you tell me.
I'll tell you a little more about my background first, then we'll go into the Genesis.
Sure.
So I was raised in a Jewish home. You know, uh, we weren't religious per se. We went like the standard Christian. We'd go twice a year, Christmas and Easter. We were
Right.
twice a year during the high holidays and something else. But but I still had this sense of a quest for God. You know, even after I got bar mitzvah and everything, which was cool, I learned how to read Hebrew, but could I understand Hebrew? No, I
Mm,
couldn't hold a conversation. I could read it, which has taught me still, it was very valuable to me even today as a believer. I don't consider myself a Christian per se. I am a Jewish believer, just like
mm,
Jesus. You know, as Jewish believer, all his apostles were Jewish believers. They didn't call themselves Christians.
right.
Come till later on. But I believe in the same thing that most Christians believe in, although some of them have done away with the law and have done away with the feast days and all that, which Jesus said never to do that.
Right.
He says, I don't remove a single jot or a tittle from the words I say. And so we need to follow that. But we're not saved by that. And
Mm.
I don't want to take time up just showing how I got saved, but I got saved many years ago by, patients witnessing to me. It's one lady. I'll take time. Anyway,
Yes, please. Listen, I have all the time. I'm serious. I can make this into 2 episodes. I don't if you have the time, I have the time, honestly.
okay. So yeah, I've had early in my career a bunch of Christians would come in and witness to me. They give me tracts, and one of them even gave me a Bible. And so anyway, I'm thinking to myself, well, that's good for you. You know, you believe in Jesus, but I'm Jewish. We don't believe in Jesus. All right. I was polite to them. So I took the tracts, I took the Bibles and things they were giving me, put them in a stack on my bookshelf somewhere. And one time, one lady came into me. She was a Mary Kay lady.
Mm.
she had the pink Cadillac, the puffed up hairdo, and it was real nice. She was a patient of mine, and you know, she came in, and one time she came in, she said, "Do you know that Jesus is the Son of God?" I said, "Well, I'm a son of God too." She says, "No, he's the only begotten Son of God."
Mm.
I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
So she said, "Well, you believe in God, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, if you do, pray to him and ask him if Jesus is the Savior." I like that. It gave me a challenge. Other
Mm.
people at track believe in Jesus. No,
Right.
doesn't hit home to me. But when you give me the challenge, make it so it's my choice, by my coming to that realization, that hit home for me. So anyway, I prayed every night for a couple of months went by. And one night I was kind of troubled, okay? And so I was praying, and the very next morning, as I woke up, I heard a man's voice in the room. It wasn't in my head. It said one word, Leviticus. So I looked around, all I saw was my wife. She doesn't have a man's voice. And, so in any case, I went to my stack of Bibles and tracts and all that were there. I went to my Bible. I knew it was a book in the Bible. That's all I can remember. And so I went over to it, and I'm reading it, and I'm seeing all these rituals you have to go through to atone for sin.
Mm.
I said, "God, if that's you speaking to me, you're going to have to do better than that." I was a little cocky there. Anyway, so he prompted me to pick up this other version, this mother and daughter were patients of mine gave me. And I opened up to the introductory section of it, and I said, "If you believe that Jesus is your Savior, you no longer have to go through all these priestly rituals." And a light
Wow.
went on for me. I said, "Wow." His timing at that moment clicked in. So then I started getting a hunger for, reading the word and do that. And shortly we went to a Messianic congregation, and it was pretty touching. My wife was Gentile. She was raised in a church where they had a similar type of format in the worship, and she started weeping from it. I said, "Well, I don't know what's going on." So anyway, so we went back a few times, and finally on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year in 1989, I got
Mm.
saved.
Wow. Wow.
So, I was a musician before that. So
Mm-hmm.
eventually I joined the praise and worship team, and God gave me a lot of songs, biblically based songs. And so I put those together. I put out a couple of CDs. In fact, I'm working on the third one right now. I'm about halfway through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been a real joy for me. The ride's been really good. So my life has been really going from, I've been inspired by music since I was an infant.
Okay.
And my mother used to sing to me all the time, even as I was, 5, 6 months old. And I bounced my body in time with the music, she said, she was singing. And before that, uh, my father played piano, yeah,
Oh.
and he would write songs. And his father uh, also played music. He was a violinist.
Wow.
And he actually taught Igor Stravinsky how to play the violin. Igor Stravinsky was one of the most noted um, musicians, writers of music at that time in the whole 20th century. Even Leonard Bernstein was praising this guy.
Oh.
So it was quite an honor to have him teach him. And so he was so thrilled with my grandfather. His piano, he couldn't take it with him. He was going to the United States. He couldn't take it with him, so I gave it to my grandfather. So my father learned how to play piano on Igor Stravinsky's piano.
Wow.
So
Oh.
it was in there, and I found out later on when one of my relatives migrated to the U.S. legally.
Mm.
They came to the U.S. and they would get together on Saturday nights and they would jam. The
Mm-hmm.
piano, violin, accordion, all these things they did back then. That was before my time, but the music was in the family, and it was
Yeah.
quite a blessing. My brother plays a musical instrument too, so.
Wow. So creativity is in your blood.
Yeah, so I went from musician to
Mhm.
physician, uh, and now inventor, and eventually I'm going to be teacher. That's my goal. That's what God has planned out for me. So I'm gonna,
Honestly, though, you've been teaching.
yes. Well,
I mean, you taught me that book, that seven. I
seven,
remember that little seven biblical secrets of vibrant health.
yeah.
I held on to. I still have it. It's so ripped up and so worn out.
I'll get you a new one.
I remember getting that, and I'm just like, what is this? And how? Wait, what? So let's go and now discuss a little bit about creation story and
Yeah.
Genesis 1. Let's start in the beginning.
In the beginning, yes. The beginning was okay. So it's really about much more than it's on the surface. A lot of people will read that passage, Genesis 1, and they skim over what's really going on. But I'm always the one who kind of guy who wants to connect the dots. Some things didn't add up to me.
Right.
What's the story behind the story? And if we look at it, uh, it talks about light, it talks about water, but yet there was nothing there. Where's the
Right.
white light and where's the water coming from? So if you look at the ancient Hebrew text, it's not like it is today. The Hebrew letters are totally different. It was like pictographs, like they did it on caves. It's like symbols. And so the symbol for water was a wave structure like that.
Mhm.
Okay. And now I'm going to dip into quantum physics a little bit, but I don't want to go deep with it because I'm going to throw everybody off when I do.
No, no, go ahead. If not, I mean,
So,
they can research.
okay, so according to quantum physics, things can either exist as a wave or a particle.
Okay.
So if you observe something, it's a particle, it's an object. But if you're not observing it, it's a wave, so it doesn't exist. You can't see it.
Mm.
Okay. So Einstein had a little trouble with that, brilliant as he was, but he didn't realize there's a great observer out there called God who
Mm.
created everything and observes it and keeps it all going.
Right.
But a lot of the concept with quantum physics has to do with when you talk about quantum physics, you talk about on a level of atomic and subatomic particles, not big things like we're looking at a screen right now,
Right.
small things, things you can't see with the naked eye. And they have a different quality about them than something that's larger. And there's a experiment called the double slit theory that actually shows that things are when they shoot electrons through this double slits, they appeared actually as waves. But when they were observing this process as was going through,
Hmm.
they're actually turned into particles. The pattern showed as particles on the back wall. So depending upon whether you're observing something or not will determine the outcome. So if it's not being observed, it's a wave. So the Spirit of God was hovering over the deep, okay?
Right.
Another word for hovering, I've seen in other versions of the Bible, is it was wavering over it, okay? It was vibrating. And so what's happening is things were not manifested yet. It was just that water was actually waves of energy.
Mm.
And because there was no water, there was no light, there was none of that.
Hmm.
Okay. So he was hovering over it, and a wave pattern is kind of like indecisive of where it's going. And so when God said, "Let there be light," he spoke it into existence. There's the Big Bang right there.
Yeah.
And what happens is the light came forth, and that was particles now are being shown. And because God observed it and said it was good. He said, the light is good, he said. He's observing it now. So that wave pattern is now particles. It's matter, it's material. All the basic groundwork for all creation was just laid down then. Of course,
Mm.
different things came on different days where you think just
Right.
literal day or not, doesn't matter to me. But all the basics were laid down there. First, he created the light, separated light from dark, and so forth. But this happened all before there was light. And
Mm.
so it's all about understanding the quantum physics behind it. The energy has just shifted. Everything is energy.
Yes.
Down to it. There's no such thing as a solid object. When you look in the mirror, okay, I'm looking at you right now.
Mm-hmm.
See two eyes, a nose, a mouth. I see headphones over your ears. I don't know. But anyway, um, they're not solid objects. There's space between all those things. You're sitting on a chair right now. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it's holding you up. It's got to be solid. It's not. It's all made up of molecules. Molecules are made of atoms, and atoms have particles in them, electrons, protons, and neutrons, and there's space between them. So
Mm-hmm.
nothing is together. In fact, I heard it analyzed that if you were to take an electron and compare it to the size of the whole atom, it's like putting a grain of sand on the 50-yard line, and the rest of the atom is a whole football field. So there's
Wow.
a lot of space in between when you're talking about that small, small level.
Mm.
There's a whole lot going on before our very eyes that we're not even looking at.
Right.
And I think that today the big problem is people are not putting the dots together. And that's what's happening. That's why our world is falling apart. Someone says this, well, but how does that connect? And that's even the big problem with our medical field.
Mm.
They're not putting the dots together.
Right.
And you're like, well, this one's got a sore throat. Okay, you see the ear, nose, and throat doctor.
Mm.
This one's got a pain in the stomach. See a gastroenterologist.
Right.
But how does it fit together? See, how I look at it is I'm like a general contractor.
Mm.
The other guys are subcontractors.
Mm-hmm.
And a subcontractor doesn't know what the other subcontractor's doing. They just
Right.
do their job and get out.
Right.
And so the thing is, you have to understand the body as a whole, how God made it, how he designed it. And it's also important to know the core of the workings of the body. And the core of the workings of the body has to do with energy. And so that's why we can tap into every cell, every part of the body. And with my digital response technique, what we do is we assess the energy level of every organ in the body. So
Mm.
we have a certain level, which is ideal. If it doesn't match up to that, I want to know why. Why isn't, like, for example, okay, say someone has congestion in the lungs, okay?
Right.
I checked their lungs out, and ideal should be 10, and they're only getting like a 7. All right, so why is it 7 and not 10? So I can check. I have different vials laid out, as you know,
Yes.
and you can touch different vials to see what matches up to that body part, the level. We have numerical values that'll tell me the level of energy flow through that body part of it, such as on 7, that means the lungs are working at a level of 7.
Mm-hmm.
But I want it to be 10. So I want to ask the body. My digital response technique is a digital interface between me and the patient, just like
Okay.
computers, and printers needed an interface to connect
Okay.
cable. But I'm asking questions, and the body responds by a muscle test. How does it work? It works by way of resonance. Resonance is when an object vibrates at a certain frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Makes contact with another object, vibrate at the same frequency. When they come together, it
Okay.
causes increased energy flow through both objects. So when they touch a vial that matches to their body, a muscle test goes strong because of the increase in energy flow.
And so that's what you're doing. Because honestly, I've done this with you so many times, and I'm just trusting the process, right? And I know, like, with the, I think you have the Rife frequency too. So I think we'll get into that in a sec. But I know, like, I'm doing this, and you just knew, like, it's just amazing. Like, I'm sitting there, and then you knew things that I didn't even know. And I'm going, whoa, because I didn't tell you anything. You just knew, and then you knew how to treat it. So, so are you feeling like when you were the muscle testing, right? Like, and you do know when someone's anxious, like you have vials for mental stuff, you have vials for the physical and spiritual. And I'm just wondering how long would it take a practitioner that you're training to learn that?
It's taken time. Yeah, he's a smart guy. He's a good chiropractor.
Hmm.
But, we've taken on to the next level, which is what I want to do for the chiropractic profession, take it on to the next level. But
Yeah.
anyway, he's training. He's coming with me every week. He spends half a day with me because he's still working in another facility.
Hmm.
But I set a goal for him. I want you ready by a certain time. So he's working toward it because we have, people want to come in, and I don't have the time for all the people I want to see.
No, right.
So, but I believe he's going to come in and do well, and then I'm going to hire someone else too. I want to
Good.
really take this on and free me up to teach other doctors too.
Yes. Well, I mean, this is when this is something you have, and God has given it to you to share to help heal. And I mean, you point to God in everything you do there too. It's not, you don't hide anything. Like, it's not like, I know doctors who are Christians, but there's no, like, you go to their office and it's just they're doctors who are Christians. Just like in my field, I have, therapists who are Christians, but they're not, their website does not say anything about, and that's okay. Everybody has to do how they feel they need to do.
Hmm.
But for you, like this whole, like, you did that booklet, 7 Biblical Secrets. Do you want to share a couple of the secrets?
Okay, well, it's basically some basic things about. So I'll be honest with you, I had to reread it myself years, and so it's about you know taking good stewardship of the body. Okay,
Mm.
being a good steward. 1 Corinthians 3:16 says, if you destroy the body, God will destroy you. So
Oof.
you got to be a good steward of what God has given you. So it's about, eating the right foods, also about uh, sharing love to people. It's
Mm.
about, getting enough sleep, getting enough rest, eating healthier foods, staying away from gluten and then dairy and a bunch of other things too, which people don't like to give up. But I must say, as they give up those things, they get well. So
Yes. It's ultra processed food. And now, and Dr. Bernstein, I have to tell you this. What you taught me years ago, and this is decades ago. I mean, I was 30, I'm 50. Okay, yeah. So this is, and that book you probably wrote even before I met you. And you knew about microbiome and all these things that are now like
yeah,
cool to talk about. You knew about those things way ahead of your time. I'm telling you right now. Like
yeah.
these things that I'm like, Dr. Bernstein used to talk about that. Wait, Dr. Bernstein used to in his book and what he would try to teach. So tell me a little, well, another vibrant. I know it's about like what you put in your system and just how we are supposed to be wide steward of everything that we're given. Back to Genesis, like I was studying Genesis and I was telling you about the course that I was trying to create and stuff. It's not done yet, but it's basically about that. Like he taught us right from the beginning. And I think that's where you have something in your 7 Biblical Secrets, the Vibrant Health pamphlet, where you talk about like we're made from the earth. That's why we need these, right?
There's so many references to that, even in the book of Daniel. Okay. This is really, really important for today. In chapter 2 in the book of Daniel, it's describing that statue. Okay. And that statue represents, different metals and things like that, corresponding to different Gentile civilizations. Okay.
Right.
And the very last one was a mixture of clay and iron.
Mm.
Okay. So clay represents man, it comes from the dust of the earth,
Wow.
and iron is metal. Okay, wait, hold on, this gets better. So as they combine together, okay, that's what
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing is about. So what do we see going on today? Robots,
Oh my.
combination of man and machine.
Mm-hmm.
Why that? Okay, man is the crown jewel of God's creation. And Satan always tries to hijack things of God. He always tries to imitate
Yes.
God.
Yep.
And so his crown jewel is robots imitating man in a way. So, so and so what's happening is um, we see what's happening even in Japan. Okay. Japan just put out something where the head of Japan apologized because 96 million people were vaccinated and got these nanobots in their body.
What?
Yeah, 96 million. So what about the robots, the nanobots or miniature robots inside the body? They're going to promote that as something that's wonderful. So
Mm,
it'll be cancer will be done away with. Healing will be a thing. Disease will be a thing of the past.
mm,
So what's happening is with these nano robots, they say it also can make you smarter. Just the thing that sucked even in the garden was you'll be as smart as God.
mm-hmm.
I'll be smart. And that's what they're going to do. They say you'll be a million times smarter through these robots inside your body because they can program them.
Yeah.
Whatever but they're not telling you about the dark side of this. They can
Mm-mm.
program you into whatever they want. So we have to be very careful. We have
Mm-hmm.
to be smart.
Right.
And so the thing is that the combination of metal and clay is what's going on today. And we need to be careful. And so I lost track. How do we get over here?
Well, it's because we were talking about how we're made from the dust of the earth, and you were talking about Daniel and just you're seeing how today and the word combine,
Right.
right? But I'm also talking about like why we need light and water and
Yeah.
everything's in Genesis, honestly. Like if you really, like you said, go into it and understand because you did mention some of that stuff in your pamphlet, that 7 biblical secrets to
Right.
vibrant health, about what we need to do. And it's not, and that's the thing. I think we've come to this culture to a point now where we feel if we're not paying a whole bunch of money for it, then it's not working. Biohacking is a big deal. I got into it as well. And, but I realized like I don't need to, I live in South Florida. Do I really need to go to a sauna? I could just sit outside for an hour,
Yeah.
right? It's just like that God made things for us on this earth to take care of us and to be a wise steward. And a wise steward is not just about our own body, but our families, our community, things like that.
Hmm.
So I want to ask you, um, as a Jewish man who follows Yeshua, right? Is that right?
That's correct.
What insights can you offer about spirituality and health? And how has your faith approached like mental health? Because I know we don't want to separate them because mind, body, spirit, we're all together and stuff. And I also want to know, how do you deal with those that think what you do is new age?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. This happened to me. I don't get it so much anymore. Okay, but years ago, I think a lot of believers have matured.
Mm,
And, but this was probably going back, I don't know, it might have been 20 years ago. I had a patient come in. She was a believer. And so then I checked her out and everything was fine. A couple of days later, she comes storming in the office. She wanted to speak to me. She says, "You need to get born again." I said, "Whoa, you mean I need to get born again again?" So, she didn't realize that. And this happened way back then a lot. There was a there was a John Ankerberg many years ago had a show on, and he had a book out, and he had put that anything that was not from medicine, from
mm,
pharmacy, is
mm,
new age.
mm-hmm,
Chiropractic,
mm,
muscle testing, and all that. So
right.
he was speaking locally somewhere, and I approached him afterwards. I wanted to hammer him with stuff like, what are you talking about, man? You don't know what you're talking about. Anyway,
Right.
I was a little abrupt. But anyway, finally they dragged me away from him. They had other people that had waiting in line to speak to him. But that was pretty common back then. Anything that was not from the pharmaceutical side of things was
Mm-hmm,
new age. And the very name pharmakia means sorcery or witchcraft. And so that is the problem. And who started the whole pharmaceutical industry Rockefeller was behind that mainly.
Mm-hmm.
And he had an agenda. His whole thing was to monopolize everything, like he did with oil, and then you finally split it up. But he was making like 5 cents a gallon on oil till he hooked up with the pharmacy. And because there's a coal tar base in all the medications, so there's more oil going into that.
Mm.
And so he hired this guy, Flexner, Abraham Flexner, to go out and to screen all the different uh, postgraduate schools, like for healing, chiropractic, herbal schools, and
Right.
medical schools. And so some things were good. He may have put them up to a higher level, and he blackballed all the others, including chiropractic.
Right.
Thought to call us rabid dogs. Okay, so it was all a scheme to eliminate the competition.
Yeah.
So in any case, but we finally sued them and won the case, and they couldn't do that anymore. But in any case, pharmacy, pharmakia or sorcery, synthetic stuff. The
Mm-hmm.
body does not handle synthetic stuff because we are a natural thing. We are natural beings.
Right.
So, and what's happening is then people are getting sick from all these synthetic drugs, synthetic vaccines, synthetic this. Everything is not natural to the body. It doesn't even know how to handle it. So the
Mm.
livers get clogged up, kidneys get botched up, clogged up, and
Right.
it's created a lot of disease. So what's happening? The medical profession will give you a drug for you have a headache, take an aspirin. Why
Mm-hmm.
you have a headache? Is your body lacking aspirin? No. Why not fix the cause of it? So once you get on a drug, there's side effects from that drug. So you need to take another drug to treat the side effects from the first one. Then it's a downward spiral.
Mm-hmm.
They have continued business throughout the rest of your life.
Mm.
Like blood pressure, take your blood pressure med, take it the rest of your life. And
Right.
the problem is it's not healing anything.
Right.
It's
It's
not,
managing. It's managing symptoms. And I get it. Like, and I know sometimes we do need to get to a place where we're kind of balanced in a way, if you're able to. But um, that's the thing is like, this is what I tell it to my clients when I do the free 15-minute consultation. Do you want to balance your system, manage symptoms, right? You manage your anxiety, depression, or you want to get to the root cause of it? Because the root cause is going to take some work, right? There's no magic pill. There is none. And honestly, there's no magic supplement either,
no.
right? But supplementation's more natural. And it's like, and especially nowadays with our foods, how they are, we're not like in this old, organic, great soil and everything like that. But again, as believers, we understand that all this is pointing to one thing, and that's for Christ to come back.
Well, yeah, one of the big problems I see today is in the diet where people
Mm,
are consuming way too much sugar.
yes.
And that's making people into a mess. And
Mm,
a lot of uh, foods with pesticides in it, which are also causing great inflammation in the body. They're having too much gluten, having dairy, a lot of caffeine, and all these things are causing inflammation in the body.
mm,
All the major diseases that we see are linked to inflammation, whether it's heart attacks, strokes, cancer, diabetes, arthritis, what have you. It's all linked to inflammation. So whatever you can do to keep inflammation down, you're going to be ahead of the game. And one of the biggest causes of inflammation, though, is the gluten.
really? And can you explain that a little? Because there's some people that I know, like I'm gluten free because of you, right? And I've been doing that for a long time. I mean, sometimes I'll sneak it when I'm really, it's hard in this culture and this world, right, to be so strict at times. But I do notice it now more than ever if I eat it. But some people don't understand it. I would be honest. My husband, he's just like, I don't need that, But I remember. Okay, so these are the things I remember from you when I first met you. You're like, you should be you should be pooping really good after every meal. I'm like, what, doctor? No way. There's no human. And he's like, no, think about it. And then you explained it to me, why and how, and if you're eating the right things and everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense because you talked about the infant and how an infant right away after every meal and it's fresh pipes. I remember all this, Dr. Bernstein. I'm telling you right now, all our conversations are stored right here, not only in my head, in my heart too. But um, but you were sharing like, and then the gluten, I'm like, gosh, what's wrong with gluten? Like, I don't understand why. Can you explain it a little?
Okay, well, the gluten is not broken down very well. It's not digested well in the body.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's true that gluten was, wheat, is a very big source of gluten, and that and certain other grains, wheat, um, you know, but rye is another one and some of the others. But those grains were mentioned in the Bible. Okay.
Right,
People come back to me and say, well, it's mentioned in the Bible. Why can't we eat it?
right,
Well, back then they didn't have the gluten levels that we have today,
right.
because gluten will lengthen the life of the grain so they can, have these things last longer. They could sell more of it before it rots.
Hmm.
And so that's part of the problem, but it's an irritant to the bowel and it causes inflammation. And so and inflammation is what leads to various things like plaquing in the arteries. People think that cholesterol is the big enemy. No, cholesterol is not the enemy. Cholesterol, you need a certain amount of cholesterol to for all your hormones are cholesterol based.
Mm,
Each cell in your body has a membrane around it's made with cholesterol. But that whole thing with cholesterol being the cause of heart problems
right,
is a fallacy. This guy named Ansel Keys back in the 1940s went around. He's going to do this research, going to different countries in Europe and see the connection between high cholesterol and heart problems. So he found certain nations did match up and some didn't. So the ones that didn't match up, he threw that out. He cherry picked the data, so it all points to what he's proving. So
right,
then we've been on this cholesterol kick too. When I got out of school many eons ago, the cholesterol level was under 300. Then it dropped down to 260,
right,
240. Now it's 200. They want to get it lower. And so the lower they make it, the more statin drugs they sell.
right.
So it's not
Well,
because
it's pretty sad how I think it's our country and Australia are the ones that are allowed to have those commercials and propaganda. So,
that's exactly
right.
right. The only two.
And right. And then of course, I mean, it's such a big, and I don't want to be like putting my tinfoil hat on, even though many of my listener knows I run around with it all the time. But but at the same time, it's just trying to get people understand that everything that you're seeing on a screen, even if it's on your cell phone, it's propaganda. A lot of it, most of it, right? And it's like, where do you find truth? And this is me as a Christian counselor. I'm like, you need to find your identity and your truth in the word of God and
Mhm.
understand that that's who has all the control. That's why Ecclesiastes is my favorite book of the Bible.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, you know, people are so seared by what they get on the tube.
mhm.
It depends what stations you watch. Some are going to be better than others. I hardly ever watch TV. My, my wife sometimes draws me in to watch a Hallmark movie. Careful. I know the plot already.
It's gonna be romantic.
Anyway, I don't get that, but it always follows the same pattern. But as far as getting the right foods, connecting the dots,
Mhm.
all these things that are missing from society today. And part of the problem with some of the COVID things they did, it affects
Mm,
part of the brain called the hypothalamus, which affects your memory. And
yeah,
so they're trying to put new memories in there and get those old ones out of there. And so we see what's going on. But people aren't connecting the dots,
no,
see what's going on. They think, oh, I'm just going to continue life. That's part of a song I sent you about, people are going to live like Noah said.
yeah,
It's going to continue to be the same old thing. Jesus is supposed to come back. Where's Jesus? He hasn't come back all this time, so he's not coming back, and all this nonsense they're talking. But connect the dots, see what's
right.
happening in the world today, and how could you not think he's coming back soon?
Right, well, there's people that don't. Like I work with quite a few that are not understanding that at all. And so I do a lot of praying. And it's community. Like it's not that we're not connecting the dots of what we're seeing on these, like having this being awake, you know, it's also we're not connecting with each other like we should be either.
That's
And
good.
that's, I mean, the brain fog, it, there's so much anxiety and depression because that's what I work with a lot. I'm in the mental health field, and that's why I'm the holistic counselor, because I try to, the things you taught me, I'm trying to teach the clients that they have power, and it starts with who they are and their identity in Christ. And if
Yeah,
you don't know who Christ is, then like, who do you say I am, right? It's like you have to have that understanding, because you're going to either live in faith or fear.
exactly. See,
And
we are co-creators with God.
mm,
He is the
mm,
creator,
yes.
but he is given the ability to create as well. As a man thinks in his heart, so he is. So you have the ability to put your own thoughts in there, but you have
Mhm.
to you have to be a good steward. You know, you have to, every day, you need to cleanse that brain. And God
Yes.
says that. And so it's all about taking control of your life, what's going on there. And so as a co-creator, you will attract into your life those things that you're dwelling on. I heard this teaching was your strongest emotion will determine the direction in your life.
Love that.
Think about that a while. That kind of blew my mind when I heard it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so true. We need to be good stewards of the temple with our thoughts as well. Creation started, God had a thought. I'm going to create the universe. Okay. You know, you can't know everything of God, but he's had a thought and he spoke it into existence.
Mm,
And out comes the energy to create that.
right.
You have a similar ability, not to create a universe,
No.
create things in your life. Because I
Right.
have patients coming in. I'm sure you've seen this. I have patients come in. One lady, she come in, doctor, I'm dying. You're not dying. You're going to come. Your body's going to take that message and create that situation in your physiology.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to change your thought pattern. You need to say,
Right.
"Hey, God is healing me." I see the change, and time again, people will get well, and they will see the difference. They'll get the healing rate will be so much faster as well. But
Right.
if you're going to put an anchor on your leg and keep you from getting where you need to go, you're not going to get there.
Yeah. No, it's true. And that's what I do. It's the rewiring of the brain, right? It's a renewal of the mind. It's like, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah.
Right. And that's cognitive behavioral therapy. Because sometimes I have to, I'm a clinical therapist, so I have to go into that science and that jargon, the psychology jargon. But honestly, that's how I see it. It's like, no, we have the ability. God has given us free will, and we have the, and so I say, like, you feel like you're a bird in a cage, but the cage door is open. You could fly if you want.
That's good.
you
Yeah.
know so as we wrap up, Dr. Bernstein, and I know, like, you sent me that song, which I will be playing it at the end. Okay, but I would like to know, like, out of all the songs that you have created, why that one? Why did you send me that one?
You know, I think it's so much today. It's really for today. Um, I have one line in there. It says, "As it was in the time of Noah, it will be in the end."
Mm,
And that's what's going on. Noah's getting prepared for the end. Okay, he's telling people, God's going to put a heavy rainstorm. You got to get ready. Got ready. Nobody would listen to him.
right.
They're continuing on as usual. They're getting married. They're going to partying. All the things they're doing, and we see that today. Oh, that's nonsense. God's not coming back. That's what's
Mm,
happening today.
mm, mm,
And it says Yeshua is the way, the truth, and the life. And that's
mm,
just how it is. There's no way of getting around it.
right.
I'm even trying to speak to some of my uh, Hasidic acquaintances, ultra Orthodox Jews,
Mm-hmm.
and they're saying that their oral law is really the way to go about it. But in Jesus gave the Torah to Moses on Mount Sinai, he didn't say, "This is not really what I want, the oral law." He said, "Write down everything I give you, okay? And that's what you have to follow." And and these are the only ways. It's not some alternate way. I'll say, well, that's just a hedge around the Torah, the oral law. But it's nothing added to it, nothing taken from it.
Mm,
So that's what we have to do. So if we follow that, we see what God's plan is and follow his plan, things fall into place. But if we ignore it, which most
mm,
people are,
mhm.
you're going to get swallowed up in the end somehow, and not rain, of course, not water.
Right.
I believe things are going to get a lot worse.
Well, we see it, but okay, so let's end to encourage the listener. How can we encourage their mental health right now? Because
Okay.
some of them are in fear. Some people will listen to this because some might not know who the Lord is. Some might know the Lord, but they're still feeling that anxiety and that worry. And I'm like, okay, we have to get you from being a warrior, like being worried, to a warrior,
Yes.
being a warrior for God, like, Ephesians 6, 10, 18 with the armor and everything. So what can we do as holistic practitioners,
Mhm.
or like what practical tips or advice would you give the listener as we end our time together?
Well, I mean, I like Isaiah 41:10 says, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand, and all who rage against you will surely be ashamed and disgraced, and those who oppose you will be as nothing. He says, for I am the Lord your God who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you. He's always there to help you. We just
Mm,
need to reach up to him and know he's there. And the more you reach up, the more he reaches down.
mm.
And I think that's the key. Turn to God and things change in your life.
Oh, what a beautiful ending to our conversation, Dr. Bernstein. Thank you so much for taking the time, because I know you're busy, for
Thank
coming
you.
on. And oh, of course. And tell Linda hello and give her a big hug for me and all the girls and all
Yeah.
the girls. Okay. And listeners, remember, trust in the Lord, guard your heart, and renew your mind. Bye.
There is no other name, no other name. There is no other name by which we must be saved. See the world go by, fire, light. the prodigal son, each of us has strayed. The only way to the Father is through His precious Son. He died for us, now the victory has been won. And you can climb the highest mountain and swim the deepest sea, but there's only one way to ride that train to glory. We're standing on the edge of eternity, so don't wait another day. If you believe in your heart, then simply say, Yeshua is the way, the truth and the life. Yeshua is the way, the truth and the life. Yeshua is the way, He's the way. 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 Yeshua is the way, the truth and the life. He's the way, the truth and the life. He's the way, the truth and the life.
And now for the disclaimer to make sure you understand that you are responsible for you. The content provided on the Holistic Counselor podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical or mental condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast are my personal opinions and do not represent the views of any professional organizations with which I am affiliated. Call your doctor, 911, or 988 immediately if you have a medical emergency. The Holistic Counselor podcast does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the podcast. Reliance on any information provided by the Holistic Counselor podcast, guests appearing on the podcast at the invitation of the Holistic Counselor podcast, or other listeners to the podcast is solely at your own risk. Confidentiality notice. If you engage with the Holistic Counselor podcast by commenting or posting and are a client, please be aware that you may be revealing information that could compromise your confidentiality. Please remember that disclosing your identity or personal details can be linked to your clinical material. As a therapist, I am bound by confidentiality and will not respond to any disclosures of this type on this podcast. I am committed to upholding the ethics and confidentiality of the therapeutic relationship, which extends to all forms of communication in accordance with the laws and professional guidelines that govern mental health professionals. I want you to know that your privacy is of utmost importance, and you are responsible for protecting it when interacting on this platform or any other public forum. Thank you.